Nice to have you here. You are exactly in the right place for the big XXL wheel brush comparison. We have looked at 18 models from Licargo, Aurum-Performance, Meguiar's, Sonax, Microfiber Madness, Chemical Works, and many, many more. Works is also included. It will be a very extensive video. We have tried to compare it in as much detail as possible for you, so you can find the perfect wheel brush for you. We wish you a lot of fun now, and Andreas and I will show you the results. Let's go! So, we are already right in the middle of the big evaluation table, and many thanks again to Andreas, who has prepared it nicely for all of us, and also digitized it, Andreas, so that we can do something with it.
We can add new wheel brushes at any time if they come out in the next weeks or months, evaluate them using the same point system, and you will always have an up-to-date overview of how the new wheel brushes compare to the previous favorites.
That's really cool. And we will jump right into the evaluation. It may look a bit complicated at first, but we will briefly explain the structure so that you fully understand it. In the first column, we have all the wheel brushes. There are a total of, I believe, 18 pieces. Andreas, material, microfiber, or this synthetic wool. Then let's jump up to the ratings, and there we first see all the size specifications. So total length in centimeters, maximum width in centimeters. And we did not rate those two things in points, Andreas. Why did we do that? Should I explain it, or would you like to? You can, of course, alright. I initially set up the test a bit and thought to myself, total length is for one person who says, I prefer a shorter wheel brush, and the other says, I prefer a longer wheel brush. Exactly. Everyone acts with... Different people use wheel brushes of different lengths differently, and that's why it's unfair to say that for both variants, the longer the wheel brush, the more points, and the shorter, the fewer. But then the next person says, I actually prefer a shorter wheel brush, I handle it better, and he would practically receive worse points or fewer for his wheel brush, even though it's actually not a disadvantage for him that it is somewhat short. That's why we have the size specifications. I measured everything, and the values sometimes deviate by 1 to 2 centimeters from the manufacturer's specifications on the websites, so I really measured it accurately. That means here, total length, you simply have the values, and the same goes for maximum width. That means, if you lay the wheel brush dry in front of you and simply measure the head width, it's just a piece of information for you. But again, the thing is, it's not 100% decisive, because if the wheel brush gets wet, for example, Andreas, the microfiber will also compress, and it will automatically become narrower. So that's just a piece of information. We're passing on to you, but it doesn't receive any points. Now, however, we come to the first, actually the most important point, Andreas, which is the minimum width in centimeters. That is the value that tells you, hey, in which gaps of my rim can I get with this brush if I buy it? So, does it fit between my spokes? Does it fit between the brake caliper and the rim? Does it fit between the brake disc and the rim? Those are the three actually significant points. Here you can see that it moves in a range from 1 cm to, I believe, 4.5 cm is the maximum I've noticed. That's the highest. We have rated this from 1 to 6 points. This means that if you are in the range of 1 to 1.5 cm, you get the full score. We need to orient ourselves, Andreas, to what values the wheel brushes provide us. So we need to try to categorize a bit, and we have rated the whole thing from 1 to 6 points.
We have broken down the point systems at the very bottom of the wave so that it is absolutely understandable and everyone can see when there were how many points.
Exactly, you can see that here. You can download it and take another look at it yourself. Minimum width.
Do not download.
Oh right, view it. Well, that's enough. Here you can practically see it again. Here were the points and also with explanations and so on. So I think this is very nicely prepared for you here. Then, a longer microfiber head is important in that sense because if you have a very short microfiber head and a long rod, when you go into your rim and want to clean something in the deep bed at the back, you will already hit the spokes on the sides with the rod, and in the end, you will hit the brake disc because the head of the microfiber wheel brush disappears behind the brake disc since it is so short. That's why a long microfiber head is really an important thing. Because the most beautiful thing is, of course, when it is already sticking out at the back of the rim and still lying on the rim at the front, and you don't have a rod that can bump into anything. And the longer.
Exactly. And the ceteris paribus, the longer the microfiber head is, the more shame. And the brush also absorbs the cleaning water. The safer one can say, the better the cleaning is.
And that's why we have it under the point of length, microfiber head in centimeters. You can also see values starting from 21. We also have some with only 11, 14, 20, 15.5. Here the points are also rated from 1 to 6. Then we have also included some information for you, namely a rubberized, plasticized brush neck. So this is the case with all of them. Why, Andreas? Because with these nylon wheel brushes, you sometimes have these twisted metal spirals. and they sometimes stick out a bit. And that's why, just for your information, all the brushes we have here in the test are all safe. They all have this plastic that doesn't massively scratch the surfaces.
I just thought we could, in the future, Sebastian, we could add a few nylon brushes and evaluate them by points as well, just to show what happens there.
We can definitely do that. Then hand protection and shield. And here you can also see that some have a small shield, some have no shield, and we have provided that information for you, but again, not rated because there are wheel brushes that are so long. For example, let's take the first one, the Chemical Works, which is so long that you simply don't need a shield because no one has 50 or 60 centimeter deep wheels. I think very few do, or they have a dragster or something. So for this one, for example, you simply don't need a protective shield. And that's why it's included here for you, so you have that information. We have rated flexibility, again because it is an advantage if the wheel brush gives a little. When you are working on a wheel and push a bit to the left and right against the wheel well or against the spokes, it is always good if some of the force is absorbed when the wheel brush bends a little or is simply flexible. And we rated the whole thing, but only with 1 point each. So there is 1 point, is it flexible? Yes or no? And there are wheel brushes that are as hard as stone. There is nothing at all. The Microphase is practically the flexible one. But the rod inside is completely rigid and not flexible. So rated here with 1 point or with 0 not.
Perhaps one more important note, none of the flexible ones is so soft that it would bend.
So they all of them bend back. This is very, very important. Then, visibility of dirt. Andreas wanted to include that as well, specifically here at 1 point. If one can recognize that, regardless of whether it's black and white fiber, blue and white fiber, or what, or just black.
4 brushes you see, they are pitch black. These are the Liquid Elements Furbies, and these are the 2 from Meguiar's. And it is very difficult to recognize the dirt and also to recognize the right moment when one should perhaps wash the brush out in the bucket again.
Exactly, and we have simply included that here, also rated with a point. And that's why it was actually a decisive criterion. That's why we included it with a point. Microfiber cover removable. It's of course cool for washing and so on. Simply rated with a point, yes or no. It's actually self-explanatory. We don't need to explain that in detail again. Then, now let's continue. Replacement cover available. That means, if my cover is broken, can I buy a new one or not? Or do I have to buy a new wheel brush? And there are differences. So there are variants with wheel brushes. You can buy a cover, like with Chemical Works. Like with the CARMODO, like with the Licargo for example, or here with Microfiber Madness, you can of course buy it again for both. But there are some where you cannot buy it again. Like with Aurum-Performance, I have exactly, although it is removable, for example, Aurum-Performance, I found nothing. If we find something later, or if that changes, so in the future there might be a Kawa from Aurum-Performance, then you can change that here. That's why we are saying this now. This table also updates, even if something really significant changes. We won't make a new video every time. That's why we point this out. So if a performance here brings a replacement cover, then you will also have a year here at some point, and then the points here will also change. But today, at this time, that is not possible. For example, with Sonax, Andreas, Sonax you can remove it, but you cannot buy a replacement.
Yes, unfortunately. And that's why there is no point here. I mean, it's also a sustainability consideration, because if the cover eventually, microfiber is a consumable, if the cover eventually, if it is broken or has been used so often that I would need to replace it, then it is good if there is a set cover, because the alternative is that I have to buy a new brush even though the whole style is intact, and that's a shame. Then the 1-star remark we have to make about the Tori, we gave a point even though there is no replacement cover because one is already included in the delivery. You practically have one on the brush and you get one directly with the overall purchase. Right, we said this point should be made for that reason.
Yes, I found that more than fair. Then we have the next point, the price of the replacement cover. Where the wheel brushes offer a replacement cover, we found that there is a significant price difference. And that actually consists of 2 areas. Once 5 euros at Chemical Works and actually always double the price at all others, even if it is 9 euros. Yes, but we haven't included any discount codes or anything like that here, right? Exactly. And that's why you would get it cheaper here. You would end up at 450, and that halves the new ones again. So here we gave another point. It's the same as with the Toripor with the replacement cover. One cover costs you half of the complete competition. That's why there's another point added here. And the last one, Andreas, price, wheel brush. Also a very, very important point. The prices can of course vary again. but we took the price from around May 11th.
We can add that as well. We'll write that down here at the bottom or the top. We'll do it live now. You'll see it too. Price for WheelBrush, status, : May 11th.
We're filming it on the 12th, but I wrote that on May 11th.
So
Exactly, and then we distributed 1 to 6 points here again, and then we see, for example, 6 points for the cheaper ones. Here, 15 euros is the cheapest. Then we have 11 as well, so I think we have from 11 to 15. What do you have here for the price? Do you have that again? Oh, right, here 15, 16, 17.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 18, 19. We effectively went down to 0 because there are 2 wheel brushes here. We still need to note that 0 to 6. There are 2 wheel brushes that are so much higher in price that we said we need to deduct an extra point because it's 40 euros. Yes, it is exactly here with the sides microfiber madness, as much as the winner now in this table, and that is simply...
The second most expensive is the GYEON with 27, right?
Exactly, and there is a huge jump to those from microfiber madness, so it would have been unfair to the GYEON if they received the same number of points.
You are hovering in such a range, and that's why the jump from GYEON is 2 points to microfiber with the 0. If they had been around 30, you could have at least given 1 point. But because you have not 30, not 32, 35, 38, but 40, you have to skip that 1 point, otherwise this overall rating is no longer roughly balanced with all the others.
Right, exactly, because otherwise we have a non-linear point scale, which would also be wrong.
This brings us to the following rating. You can now relax and look at it here, and we have a total of 23 possible points. In last place, we have the GYEON WheelBrush in large. In terms of rating and price, as you can see here from all the measurements, how thin it can be, it is 4 cm, which is really too thick for a wheel brush that is supposed to be very, versatile. Now, a reminder, Andreas.
The fact that it is a relatively large brush at almost 50 centimeters, but it has a very small brush head.
Next is the GYEON in the medium variant, which is a bit thinner, so it has a few more points. Otherwise, the features were the same, and the price is also a bit cheaper. We are now moving further up, of course. Then again, the Meguiars. So we have the Meguiars and a GYEON relatively low. This is simply due to the tough features and the tough ratings we have here.
Exactly. Plus, don't forget, we have a few brushes here that have the same number of points. So the Sonax and the Meguiars have the same amount. And then there are, counting 1, 2, 3, 4 brushes that all have 12 points.
Exactly. If you take a look, it is relatively close together. So in the end here, the difference is between 11, 12, and 13. There are quite a few. And that's why it's important that we show you this video and this table so that you can then choose based on this data what is personally important to you. There is someone among you who says, price doesn't matter to me at all. What matters to me is how thin it is. Or, for example, it's important to me that it has a long microfiber head. For me, 3 centimeters are enough. The thickness doesn't matter to me at all. Then you just look here. Okay, 3 centimeters, you have it here in this range up to here. So that means, from here to up here, all the wheel brushes are interesting for you. And that's exactly the point why this is, I think, a very, very great added value for you.
Plus, I have to say it again, you see from the middle down to the very bottom, it is very, very close. And now let's take the Sonax wheel brush as an example. I will mark this line here. If it cost a little less, if there was a replacement cover, and if it were maybe a little thinner, then it would have 3 more points, and suddenly it would be relatively high. Then it would be up here already. Then it would already be in the performance range. So my personal conclusion from the table and the test, where the test must be clearly stated, you, Sebastian, did it and not I. I only helped with the table. My conclusion is that there is clearly one brush that definitely stands out as exceptional and should be recommended, but there isn't really a bad brush.
Because everyone has different things that are important to them. For example, who says that if you have black rims, it has to be black, because the dirt detection is not important to me? Then you can also calculate this point out for yourselves and calculate it differently. We really want to address everything. What I also find very, very interesting, Andreas, look. The big companies that we know, which have been widely talked about for a long time, have ended up relatively low. And all the, I'll call them newcomers. Here, CARMODO, none of you have heard of that yet. Toripor on Amazon, those are both brushes available on Amazon. They are in 2nd and 3rd place. And not just because they are simply cheap, because they are not necessarily inexpensive. We do have a really cheap one, the €15 one and the 20 with 2 covers. That is absolutely fair. And the reviews speak for themselves. Here is everything we expect from a good rim brush. The minimum width fits. Look here, the minimum width is great. And that's why rim brushes from no name, or let's say lesser known brands, slide very, very far up. Many of you also know Aurum-Performance. Also, good up there, but not at the very top. But here there are brands that everyone knows, yet they have ended up very far down. And that is simply due to the ratings. This was conducted here, but these are all points that make a good rim brush. And I think it's so great to have everything laid out in a table like this because you can evaluate it very clearly, without any preferences. I'm a fan of this or that brand. That is completely irrelevant. It's about simple data and facts.
Yes. And I mean, now every one of you can take this table. Now every one of you can add an additional rating category. What do I know? Take more water absorption, or I like the brands. And then you just give 6 extra points for those things. And then you can see how things shift accordingly. So everyone can adjust it themselves.
All right, so let's cool down the top 3 in third place. The Toripor here in our test, the microfiber car rim brush. I'll also show you a short video at the appropriate points so you know what it looks like. So here with 18 out of 23 points, then comes Licargo in 4th place, which is why it's a bit in parentheses, so 2 points less. So in 3rd place, the Toripor. In 2nd place, the CARMODO with 20 out of 23 points. And in 1st place, the Chemical Works Flat WheelBrush Microfiber Rim Brush. And it only got deducted for the price point. You can be mean now and say, you can use a community code, then you're here at €15 something, then it gets 6 points, then it has the full score. But we won't do that because it would be unfair, but we can mention it because it exists. There is our community code. And with that, Andreas, we are done. Thank you very much for your wonderful preparation of this really, really great table. It turned out very, very cool. We hope this is helpful to you. We can make good use of it. You understand the system behind it. Hopefully, you understand how we evaluate it. We look forward to your feedback. Maybe you say, hey, microfiber length doesn't interest me at all. That can actually be removed. Then make it your own in your evaluation, however you want to do it. This is our evaluation scheme, our evaluation criteria, and you can then modify it however you like. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Go for it. You will also find all the wheel brushes linked again under the video. And we'll see each other next time. Thank you, Andreas. You're welcome. Until next time. Bye. Thank you all. Bye.